roar from the ceiling, which scares the squad to hell. Skeletons of some monsters jump from above with burning eyes and swords in their hands. The only one who isn't worried is Jae-min. He was waiting for them to appear. These are the skeletons of the dragon squad. Monsters use their weapons, dragon horror. The roar of the dragon squad, designed to intimidate enemies. The Constellation says that the dragon's terror can be repelled with a potion. But even here Jae-min asks not to worry her. He has everything under control. Although he knew that this would happen, however, it still turns out to be a good job with the squad. Volt turns out to be completely terrified of what is happening. Jae-min holds the sword out in front of him. It glows faintly. However, when the monster attacks this sword with its weapon, it immediately moves back. The system sends a message that the servants are paying their respects to their king. Now the king is under their protection. The skeletons bow to one another, and Jae-min braggadocio calls them his wards. Do they want to have fun? The player, with a sideways glance, tells the guys from Volt that he sincerely hopes that they will get along with his new friends and lets the skeletons down like dogs off a leash, setting them on Volt. The dragons kill them in no time. Jae-min thinks with displeasure that these people were really going to kill him. What nonsense, nothing good would have come of it anyway. Only they themselves suffered in the end. The guy realized this as a child. The Constellation is dissatisfied with the behavior of his son and sends him punishment. He was sent a tangible kick of love, because of which Jae-min almost falls to his knees. The player asks in amazement for what it is. Hyun-seok is angry for all of the above. The guy admits that he would be wrong, but according to the Constellation, it's too late to apologize. She turns out to be so angry that she disconnects for 11 hours 59 minutes 59 seconds, and then she will return. Is it really possible for constellations to disappear so easily? Before finally disappearing, Hyun-seok urges his son to deal with the dungeon as soon as possible and disappears again. Although Jae-min has no idea what should happen to him in almost 12 hours, he is now starting to clean up the dungeon. The player orders his bony wards to deal with all the problems, who cope with everything pretty well. They reach the dragon statue, made in a very realistic manner. Jae-min points a sword at him and says it's time to start. The eyes of the statue light up, and then light comes out of it, which illuminates the entire space in the room. The light focuses on Jae-min and the floor under him turns into a fiery abyss. Apparently, this means yes. The player asks to open a special test for him. The system writes that a request has been received to open access to a forbidden dungeon. The royal decree has been executed. There is a transfer to the tomb of Fafnir, the legendary dragon of their Scandinavian mythology. Members of the Volt squad looking at their torn comrades. How come they're all dead? Who could do such a thing alone? And how could the boss just leave these guys to die? Had he not thought of them at all? They decide to vent their anger on Hwang Jae-min and resolutely went in search of him. The player, who is still in a closed dungeon, asks himself the question, did Lee Chang-yek tell about this? Fafnir's tomb. A constellation appears nearby, complaining about being in such a terrible place for the first time. Jae-min also notes that it's pretty hot for such a place. Although the situation here is not sugar, he still needs to find something. The player walks through a burning dungeon, which looks more like hell, with the firm thought that he will definitely get it. Suddenly, a bunch of arms wrap around his legs. The system reports that Rock Lake has recognized the royal status. Those with this status will receive a special offer. The lake's offer is being formed. The system asks not to interrupt the skill order of the king until the end of the process. There is 1 minute 59 seconds left before the special offer is submitted. Although Jae-min doesn't know what kind of lake this is, he frankly doesn't want to know. But he knows something for sure, his sword is the king of this place. He will get this sacred weapon. Volt, who came to avenge the death of their comrades, enter the room where the dragon statue is located, which is guarded by the skeletons of the king. The commander orders to prepare for battle. Skeletons attack people, and they attack back. The commander aims a fireball at the dragon statue. When there are 10 seconds left before receiving a special offer, the dungeon is attacked by outsiders. The formation process was interrupted. Fafnir's tomb was opened, and Fafnir, who had been resting in it earlier, was awakened due to the invasion. A squad is falling from the sky, who completely do not understand where they are. Them again. The commander quickly gets to his feet and asks the player if he is Hwang Jae-min. What is he doing here? However, this guy needs to ask this question. They literally fell from the sky. The process of forming a special offer begins again, which cannot but please the player. However, Volt does not intend to give him time to receive an offer. In his hand is a fireball that will turn Jae-min's head into ashes. What does he think about it? He clearly realizes that he won't last a whole minute. It's just crazy. Hyun-seok sends support for his son, The talent pill is an enhanced shield. The C-class shield will definitely help you hold out for this minute. Before the commander throws the ball, lightning bolts appear, and even something happens to Jae-min's shield. A menacing voice asks if they know what he loves the most. People cover their ears with their hands. When the creature doesn't get an answer, it repeats its question with even more fury. A huge monster rises from the ground. He answers his own question. Most of all, the monster does not like to wake up in the middle of the night. His eyes are red, there are horns on the sides of his head, and he is as tall as a high-rise building. Volt quickly realizes that now they are going to be covered. Lake of Doom restarts the process and again asks not to interrupt the order of the king until the end of the process. The situation is getting out of Jae-min's control due to the appearance of the squad. 1 minute is not enough, the monster will get to him faster. Fafnir is amazed that ordinary mortals had so much audacity that they broke into his chambers right in the middle of the night. The Dragon Lord has a very powerful suppression power, as the player notes. Hyun Seok is urgently sending support to his son. Something falls into Jae-min's hand. He praises his mother for her resourcefulness, calling her a genius. He asks the Volt to wait a minute, and the commander quickly changes his anger to a thought. The man asks what he has come up with. Jae-min replies that he has an idea, so if they want to live, then they just have to wait a minute. Does he think that something will change in a minute? However, what is the point of a player lying in such a situation? He asks you to trust him. The commander agrees through his teeth and orders his men to hold out for just a minute. Let them be ready for battle. They manage to kill someone from the squad. Fafnir hears the conversation between them and is outraged that he also has to wait for them. How pathetic of them. The red-eyed gaze falls on Jae-min. Fafnir is outraged that an object filled with his spiritual power is in the dirty hands of a boy. The player is outraged that his hands were called dirty, although in a figurative sense he is clean. The monster roars, "He didn't let you touch his soul." A black ball appears in his chest, and then he suddenly says to catch it. The guy grits his teeth, "Please, just hold on a little longer." The skeletons of Jae-min stand up for their king on his orders. He also asks Volt to join them. Following the skeletons, which attack Fafnir like small fleas, the squad rushes at the monster. The formation ends. The process turns out to be running. Jae-min glows with a blue light that comes from a drawing on the ground. Fafnir quickly draws attention to this. How did this bastard dare to start the generation process? Approaching the drawing, the player suddenly loses the sword, which simply disappears from his hands. The drawing forms into a ball, to which the hands that recently held the guy's hand reach out. The ball reaches out to him, and Jae-min realizes it's a sacred sword. But instead of the long-awaited weapon, a brown bag turns out to be in the palms. Yes, and it's empty inside. Fafnir is outraged. Why did this boy like Lake Rock so much that it chose him? It's hard for him to believe that Jae-min managed to get the most powerful weapon, which is not at all on the level of ordinary people. However, the player pokes him with an empty bag and asks in what sense is this the most powerful weapon. The commander seems to understand that now they will all die, since the player's plans did not come true. That's really all. It remains only to get out of here as soon as possible. There is no other choice. The squad members ask him if the guy knows how to get out of here. Surely he knows what the questions are. Now is the time to use what his mother gave him. He puts an amber pebble on public display. The commander quickly realizes that this is a teleportation stone. However, everyone knows that it is only for one person. Will Jae-min leave them here? But why would a guy help those who tried to kill him? He really didn't promise that he would help them get out of here. Waving his hand at the last, the guy wishes them good luck. Fafnir does not want to let him go, indignantly asking where he is going. The monster's huge foot crushes the Volt squad to death, and Jae-min disappears. On the street, where it is already completely dark, the player falls to his knees, feeling dizzy. He did not think that using the stone would be so difficult. The squad boss immediately asks what the jerk is doing here. Are they still here? Well, perseverance. When asked where the rest of the Volta members went, Jae-min sarcastically replies that they left for America on a green giant, and then immediately adds without any understatement that they died. It angers a man in a suit. Does it amuse a guy? In that case, let him be ready for a fight. The player sighs heavily. If he had a sacred sword now, he would have scattered them in one fell swoop and no problems would arise. He shakes the bag in his hands, still angry that he got it instead of a cool sword. However, suddenly it opens, starting to glow from the inside. The system message says that Pandora's box has been activated, which is able to generate any weapon with the needs of the owner. The air is swirling, and Jae-min is looking at it with his mouth open. Is this bag capable of such things? It turns out that he can create any necessary weapon whenever he wants. Maybe this is some kind of joke. However, what will it generate now? In the hands of the player is a machine gun, a weapon that is effective not only against monsters, but also against people. Finally, the guy says that now they are all over here. The news tells about a mysterious player who single-handedly defeated a squad of orcs. The city is still discussing his heroic deed. The guy's phone receives a bunch of calls from different squads. He angrily grabs his phone, asking what the hell is going on here. Hwang Jae-min is surprised to say that his son seems to have more than 20 unread messages. As soon as he appeared on TV once, everyone made such a fuss. Constellation is crying with joy. Her son has grown up so fast. But Jae-min rubs his head tiredly. Because all people are so annoying, he can't stand it anymore. However, it's great that thanks to Uncle Hwang Jae-min, he now has a separate home. The broadcaster continues the release. The Volt squad responsible for the order in the Gwanek area has not been found. Jae-min even feels a little sorry for those people who are trying to find the squad. That night, the guy just shot them without any trial. Hwang Jae-min is not a bit outraged by this action of her son. If he hadn't done it, they would have killed him. He understands this perfectly well. The guy does not want to remain an F-class player, and now he has a Pandora's box to become stronger. The bag has invisibility, so no one will be able to detect it. Hwang Jae-min asks where he's going so early. Jae-min proudly replies that he is going to get stronger. It is worth starting with obtaining a certificate. In the department of the class system, everyone recognizes the player. Many ask to join them in the squad, and others ask him to stand, like everyone else, in line. Constellation, displeased, advises to use soporific spray against all these people. However, he has another idea. Jae-min shouts out to the crowd that whoever gets in the way under his feet will never get a chance to be in the same squad with him. Everyone immediately falls silent and makes way for him, and Hwang Jae-min is proud of his son. The girl, before sending the player to cyberspace, asks him if he is ready for the evaluation procedure to formalize the evaluation. He ignores the words about what the evaluation system is. The player puts on a helmet and lies down in the capsule. The evaluation procedure begins. It is required to destroy as many monsters as possible in half an hour. Once in cyberspace, Jae-min sees almost nothing. The room is too dark. When a ball of lightning flies towards him, he realizes that, as expected, the guy will fight against the same monster as for the first time in his previous life. In front of his face is a stone ball with a dissatisfied face. Jae-min is not the same as before. The guy uses a Pandora's box on his back, not knowing what kind of weapons he will come across this time. But the bag generates them depending on the needs of the owner, so it will be necessary in any case. In both hands of the player is a pair of pistols. People outside are watching on TV as the guy from the news shows his high abilities, dexterity, accuracy, skills, and even the ability to use mana. He is simply inimitable. The girl in the red suit says that his abilities are beyond imagination. They will not allow such a talent to fall into someone else's greedy hands, because the Gaming Association is recruiting future heroes of the nation. The Constellation of the Monk of Greed promises a generous reward to the one in whose squad Jae-min agrees to come. Behind the girl, like the Constellation Hwang Jae-min, a monk with a rosary in his hands hovers. The stranger says that even though you can't tell it from her, but her mouth is watering with impatience. I wonder what class this guy will get. Maybe C class. The evaluation procedure is completed, and it makes everyone excited. The B class is displayed on the screen, but he was reborn only yesterday. Jae-min may well reach a class soon. The player leaves the evaluation room and is attacked with renewed vigor. The voice of the girl in the suit rises above the others. She offers to join them in the name of the nation. She says that with power comes responsibility. If Hwang Jae-min agrees to help ensure universal security and work for the interests of the nation, Korea will become a truly powerful power. The players of the other squad are very outraged. The Gaming Association has so much money, where else would they like Jae-min? According to people, the girl's name is Seo Jae-soo. She isn't a class player. Although little has been heard about them, however, there are rumors that they have special training methods, and no one thinks that the guy will agree. Something happens to Jae-min, his eyes start to shake, and he turns into a zombie. Jae-soo uses the Curse of Possession on him, a magical skill that can control the spirit of any living being. No matter how strong Jae-min is, he's only a B-class player. While she's from a class, he won't have the strength to resist her anyway. It is also the most powerful skill of the Monk of Obsession Constellation behind her back. Jae-min will belong to Jae-soo. Suddenly, something pierces the thoughts of the B-class player, and he politely refuses. The girl freezes in surprise. Was he unaffected by her skill? The system informs Jae-soo that this skill cannot be applied on this person. But how is this possible? Jae-min leaves in confusion. What was that just now? He was hanging by a thread. The voice in the guy's head makes him freeze in shock. The voice says that it's pretty amazing how he stood up to her skill. He's an unusual person. What would happen if this dark energy took over his soul and will? The system sends a message that a babysitter has connected to the player, and everything falls into place. Jae-min remembers how Hyun-seok promised to send him a babysitter yesterday, although he completely forgot about her words. However, the babysitter is nowhere to be seen, no matter how the guy turns around. The voice immediately mockingly advises him to deal with the urgent problem first. Did she read his mind? The babysitter immediately answers Jae-min's question. They can communicate using the power of thought. The nanny says that he almost fell into the trap of that woman. Fortunately, she arrived in time and brought him to his senses. A couple more seconds and her power would have swallowed Jae-min completely. Jae-soo is still emitting waves of anger because the monk's curse didn't work on some B-class player. The babysitter informs him that she will keep an eye on him until Hyun-seok returns. She hopes they'll get along. The voice advises him to think about joining the squad. The player understands that the babysitter is right, and he has already made his choice. The guy looks at a man standing in the distance with glasses, who seems to be the only one who does not interfere in general disputes. Jae-min puts his hand on his shoulder and thinks that this man did not try to lure him to himself like the others did. Lee Chang-yek joined his guild 6 months ago. In his previous life, Jae-min worked for them as a servant. The player says that if this man does not mind, then he would like to sign a contract with the Black Lion Guild. People around are outraged. A man like him is going to join these scum. Jae-min doesn't listen to anyone around. The most important thing is that thanks to them, they will be able to get more information about the evil mist dungeon in which he died last time. The man, when the guy is already sitting in his car, introduces himself as Hwang Jae-min. He is engaged in intelligence and monitors the portals in the Black Lion. But Jae-min already knows that. Jae-min says that they don't have such a large squad, so it won't be easy to compete with others. But even though they have nothing to offer him, the guild will try to create the best conditions for him. The guy interrupts him with the words that he made a choice, so the man cannot worry. Suddenly, the voice of the nanny appears, who informs him that for such a good choice of the squad, she gives him 15 points. Wow, what is this all of a sudden? Jae-min asks where these glasses can be used. The nanny does not answer the question directly. She only promises that he will find out soon, but they will still be useful to him, so let him put them in a secluded place for now. She would have liked to give more, but she was asked to be on her guard. The guy is dissatisfied with the fact that they behave like a child with him. Suddenly Jae-min slows down sharply. There was a rift on the road, the phenomenon of the invasion of monsters due to the rupture of the dungeon. People in military uniforms are shouting at each other, waiting for the arrival of the players, as they themselves cannot cope. The military blames the players for the appearance of the rift. They can't even clear an ordinary portal, so it's not surprising that gaps began to appear. Jae-min grumbles, it would be better if instead of talking, they hurried into the portal and destroyed all the monsters. Jae-min nods, because it's a pretty smart idea, but after entering the portal closes, so there's probably nothing you can do about it. The military is starting to worry. The portal is about to burst. It becomes dangerous to be near it. Why are the players still not in place? The guy asks why the portal should break. A huge monster with 2 heads comes out of the gap. Jae-min immediately recognizes him as a man-eating giant, and a 2-headed one at that. Most likely, he is not lower than C class. He asks what reward is due for such a monster, but Jae-min does not understand what he is talking about. The player gets out of the car. Although it's not easy to defeat a C-class monster, however, he can quite cope with it. Jae-min can't ignore it anyway. And the guy also wants to make amends for the murder of the Volt squad. When a military man asks him to go to a safe place, the player immediately provides his ID. Then the soldier happily lets him go to the giant. The babysitter asks if he's really going to fight a C-class monster alone. Although it's careless, it deserves respect. Such dedication cannot but cause admiration. If Jae-min copes, she will give him 20 points. The guy, even before rebirth, learned everything about this monster, including his weaknesses. A Pandora's box opens, from which the best weapons will be selected for such a battle. First you need to destroy the head with one sparkling eye, namely the right one. The box gives the player a bow, from which Jae-min shoots accurately, but the giant catches an arrow right at his forehead. However, the guy is not upset. The arrow hit right in the bullseye. The next moment, the arrow explodes with a blue light. Pandora's box opens again. Now the player has a sword in his hands. He resolutely runs at the monster. The ogre lowers the baton on a small, compared to him, man, but he lacks speed, and then the guy easily jumps aside. Yi-min jumps into the air and hits the left eye of the right head, which, just the same, does not glow red. He touched a vulnerable spot, so the penetration should have decreased. It's time to concentrate on the main point. The player aims at the neck. He thrusts his sword into this point, and dark, bubbling blood spills out of the giant's body. The monster falls, and Yi-min stands victoriously right on top of it. The military is amazed. The Volt squad is not even standing next to this guy. Jae-min sticks his head out of the car window. He watched the fight and didn't think that the player was so good. To think that someone like him would want to join their squad. The babysitter praises Yi-min. It was just incredible. But she has urgent things to do, so the nanny needs to leave urgently. She promises to give him 20 points, then let him check the status in the data summary. The nanny finally tells him to be careful and obey his mother. Although the guy is annoyed that his dreams were called a child, he opens the data summary. The score turns out to be 35 points. It is written on the screen that you can dispose of the glasses yourself. Yi-min frowns. How can I increase the performance indicator with glasses? They're not in some kind of game. The system hardly supports such a function, and the guy had never heard of such a thing before. Maybe he's an exception. Hyun-seok's Constellation is returning. She is glad to see her son and asks if he behaved well with the nanny. Yi-min reports that he really liked the babysitter and he is looking forward to seeing her again. The player begins to think about what to do with the points received. There are 35 of them in total. For 5 points you can increase the characteristic by 1 unit. How would you distribute them? Hyun-seok advises him to think about it. However, the guy does not think for long. He quickly chooses the characteristic that he wants to increase. Yi-min adopted the abilities of his parents thanks to the skill you can't escape from genes. It increases the characteristics and increases the ability to wield any weapon. The player is capable of anything. What's the point of him racking his head? Yi-min can handle any role, from tank to support. The system reports that he has successfully distributed the points. Thanks to the glasses, the average of all characteristics is above 65. But before rebirth, he did not even reach 30. An ordinary person would need more than 3 years for such a result, and the guy achieved it in just 2 days. Hyun-seok is surprised at how weak his son was before his rebirth. He asks not to ask her such questions. Jae-min brings the player to the office of the Black Lions squad. In his previous life, Yi-min had to suffer a lot because of the sword god of the Central Valleys. Only one person has always been there, even in the most difficult times for him. The guy was very grateful to him. It's time to see the jerk boss, director Park Young-soo, who, as the player notices, has not changed at all. Yi-min shakes his hand and introduces himself as a new member of the Black Lion squad. For the guy, this boss is one of the nastiest people he has ever known in both lives. Just remembering how Young-soo treated him makes his blood run cold, and his face twists, betraying all his disgust for him. In his past life, Young-soo constantly goaded him for having such a bunch of garbage born to C-class players, which is good for nothing. The boss advised him to better invest the money inherited from his parents in the development of the squad, since the boy still has little chance. In that life, the guy just clenched his teeth and was silent. Hyun-seok is shaking with anger and asks if her son could just kill him. The boss slaps Jae-min on the shoulder and says that it turns out the man is not so useless. What a brute, how can you talk to your elders like that? Young-soo asks the player what he thinks about the welcome party. However, Yi-min would like to be tested first. The boss says that there is no point in testing, and for a person like him, they could make an exception, but the guy wants to show what he is capable of. Young-soo is pleased with this desire of the new subordinate. He is clearly full of ambition. They need such a person in the team. In the dungeon, the boss tells off his employees who are coping worse than the guy who just got his ID today. He orders them to go faster and in no way justifies his title of the best leader, which Jong-soo dubbed himself. Subordinates only pour mud on him in their thoughts, not daring to speak out loud, and declare that the boss only knows how to bark and did nothing useful. Suddenly, a monster Bantatra appears, which releases some sharp things, one of which hits the worker's eye. Young-soo yells at them for not being able to handle even such a simple task. Yi-min takes a small blade from the boss and quickly kills the Bantatra since he depends on mana, so when fighting this monster, you need to focus on destroying the source. The boss praises him. The guy is even smarter than he thought. He immediately starts shouting at the others to stop shaming the Black Lion in the eyes of the new player. What if he leaves them? Who will be responsible for this? Hyun-seok is completely sure that the leader has problems with controlling aggression and advises not to rely on such useless people. They are coming to a dead end. One of the workers timidly touches the wall, as he saw such a trick in some movie, and the wall immediately collapses under the magic spell. They find gems. I wonder how much such wealth will cost. Young-soo asks, why did they stand up like idiots? He will personally kill everyone who is lazy here. The workers start working as hard as they can, thinking about how we can steal a couple of stones while the boss is not looking. Jae-min, like the others, wants this man to shut up as soon as possible. The dungeon is shaken by a roar. A huge monster, similar to a dog, appears from the wall. Young-soo doesn't worry a bit about the lives of his workers. He is much more worried that his jewelry may suffer. The player quickly recognizes a giant mole in the monster. Men run away from him in horror, unable to do anything with him on their own. The Constellation says that the sun is strong enough to cope with him. Jae-min already knows this. He will deal with the mole as soon as everyone moves away to a safe distance. But Young-soo decides to act on his own, throws a fireball in the direction of his subordinates. The ceiling above them collapses, and they find themselves immured together with this monster. Jae-min screams at him to ask what he's doing. The boss is completely satisfied with himself. After eating, this monster will hibernate. When the guy does not understand what he is driving at, Young-soo replies that he has fed the mole with his own people. Let the player not be so naive. Now it remains only to wait until the mole falls asleep, and then they will take all the jewelry. The boss's eyes burn greedily when he complains that it will not be so easy to carry everything together. Hyun-seok was speechless from such commercialism. How can he treat others like that? Young-soo says they can go and have a snack for now. Jae-min grabs him by the back of the head and growls that it's right to say, people don't change. What a goat he was, and he remains that way. And then he tramples the former boss into the ground. Standing over Young-soo, the guy thanks the leader for making his life easier. If he doesn't want to get it again, then let him get up and start dismantling the stones. But when Young-soo doesn't call out, Jae-min rudely asks if he has fallen asleep. However, everything turns out to be much simpler. He disconnected from a light slap on the back of the head. The Constellation scolds him for the fact that his son first had to help about other players, and only then beat their boss. Only after her words, Jae-min remembers about the people trapped on the other side of the wall. He asks them to move away from the stones, and then uses reinforcement and breaks the wall. The men thank him for saving them. The guy asks them to run away as far as possible. He will deal with the mole himself. Pandora's box opens, ready to pick up the best weapon. Every time Jae-min wonders what he will be given this time. The spear. Against this ferocious monster, the spear is the best weapon, because it is better to keep a distance with it and not fall into the range of attack of its claws. The beast, as well as his opponent, is ready for battle. Just a merciless beast. The mole lowers his paw, but he can't catch Jae-min at a distance. He jumps into the air and hits the neck, from where warm red blood begins to flow. The monster growls angrily in pain. The workers, meanwhile, are in no hurry to leave. They are watching the course of the battle with their mouths open, and how Jae-min literally flew into the air. Why did such a talent choose their worthless squad Black Lion? One of them offers to help him, but he was considered crazy. They are absolutely no match for a guy, much less a monster. Jeong-soo gets up from the ground and rubs his head. The worker asks if he was really going to leave and run away from them. However, the boss does not answer his question. This guy not only dared to hit him, but also to disgrace him in front of his people. He will destroy Jae-min. The man again calls for a fireball, which recently brought down the ceiling on the workers, and wishes the player to die. Young-soo's subordinates side with Jae-min, and he immediately orders these freaks to get out. They grab his hands and torso and ask their savior to be careful, because he managed to launch a light ball. The guy manages to jump aside, which accurately hits the mole. But he does not fall, but only becomes angrier and fiercer. Steam begins to fall from his ears and eyes. The workers are shouting that they are doomed, although they were not to blame for the situation. It wasn't fair. The mole reaches out with a paw with long claws to the boss, whose voice begins to tremble when he pointlessly orders not to approach him. He tries to brag about being the leader of the Black Lion, but that doesn't help either. With its powerful paw, the monster steps on Jeong-soo. Everyone freezes in shock and horror. The boss lays all bloody and wounded and asks for help. While the mole does not pay attention to the B-class player, Hyun-song says that this is his chance. The weakness of the monster is the back of the head. It will not be so difficult to defeat him. Jae-min jumps off a cliff at him, aiming at the back of his head. It seems that today a lot of people will get from him on the back of the head, starting from monsters and ending with a nasty boss. The spear pierces the mole through the back of the head to the sky. The monster drops dead. Although the guy won, however, he feels some strange feeling that does not give him peace. Hyun-seok praises him and says that he knows how to pick the right moment perfectly. The player approaches others and is interested in their well-being. They thank him that he, not like their greedy boss, did not leave them to die. They don't even know how to thank him. Jae-min looks at Young-soo's torn body. Although he did not think that everything would end so sadly, he knows that the former boss got what he deserved. Young-soo's body begins to evaporate, and the guy turns away in disgust. Although it's not the first time he sees it, he still can't get used to it. The guys from the Volt squad, like the boss, turned into ashes. It's probably even good that they are missing. But Jae-min is tormented by the thought that he knows the truth of their disappearance. They are all dead. Pandora's box consumes a corpse with the gluttony skill. The box turns out to be improved. The guy opens the box information window. After killing the Volt, the improvement was only 20%, and now it's 31. I wonder what kind of skill awaits him at the second level. It's time to get out of here. Meanwhile, the workers began to collect stones. They are ready to carry out any order that the player gives them. However, how can he give orders when he is younger? The guy just asks them that they need to unite and get it over with as soon as possible. At the office, they report that their boss is dead. The employees immediately explain the situation. Jong-soo wanted to feed them to the monster, and if it wasn't for Jae-min, none of them would have been there. But no one is upset, on the contrary. Everyone is happy that life will become easier now. Quite an interesting reaction. Hyun-seok is confused and says that at least the two of them should show compassion. Jae-hwan reports that now they have some difficulties and it would be better if they disband the squad. But then EHWA intervenes and offers the man to take the boss's place. The man's hair stands on end on his head. Everyone supports him, but Jae-hwan continues to deny it. If not him, then who? The player has set himself several tasks, and the first of them is to transfer control of the Black Lion to Mr. Ho Jin-hwan.